Okay, good morning, students. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, thanks. So, uh, what we were discussing, can anyone remind me last week?
On neural network-based modeling technique.
Yes. What we were discussing last week, can anyone remind?
We were discussing the neural network-based modeling technique.
Right. Okay, great. So today we will be trying to further extend that topic and a little bit discussion on certain aspects in terms of modeling technique, and particularly an example that we will be discussing today. So it may not be possible in the class to run a simulation, or rather to run a modeling task in MATLAB, but I will send some link like YouTube video link, or some papers where the data are there, and more or less the procedure is laid down. So you have to just upload your data file and start working on the MATLAB. There is a MATLAB tool already there. You can use that, or you can write your own code. So based on the examples that we will be discussing in the class, you are supposed to run that example problem, and to match the data that is presented in that example. So the YouTube video link will help you to run the particular MATLAB task, and the example problem will give you that. If you run the example problem again on your own, that will give you the confidence to basically use machine learning or other AI backpropagation algorithm technique. So let me share my screen and discuss certain aspects. Rather, last week we were rather throwing upon some questions like what is the learning rate. We have seen that the learning rate is a very much key parameter. Rather, we will introduce a term called hyperparameter, and we will discuss upon that, on what is the difference between parameter and hyperparameter. So basically we have found out that there is something called learning rate, which is not always constant. We can change during the number of iterations or number of epochs. So apart from the learning rate, there are many other things. Rather, we call it as right now as certain variables, not variables, certain aspects which we have to differentiate between what is a parameter and what is hyperparameter. So they are called configurational variable, or configuration excuse me, configuration variable. So let us see what are those different thing. And in these connections, we just want to share a few lines about, or few thoughts about single layer perceptron and multi-layer perceptron. So basically the term perceptron is nothing but the node or neuron. So this is denoting that particular node where we have seen the operation of a linear operation as well as non-linear operation. So we have seen that a particular node, it receives informations from various others. It can receive from the input layer, or it can receive from previous what is called previous A layer, previous hidden layer. So that algebraic sum is information is carried over with this weight, as well as it can take one bias. So this is a basically linear part, and here you have the non-linear operation. It could be some sigmoid function or tan hyperbolic or some other non-linear operator. So which is nothing but adding new features. It's almost like in when we discuss about this AI technique or feed-forward neural network, between the input variables or other input values and output values, there are several dimensions which we want to travel. Which we want to travel means, for example, in order to capture that path or in order to capture that non-linearity, the trend between input values and output values, what we are doing, we are either adding different hidden layer, could be one hidden layer or could be many hidden layer, right? So this is very important, the number of hidden layer in a neural network thing. So that is something called what is called height or width. There is basically number. So there is one thing that is the I think this is also width, and this is the height, this number of nodes in a layer. So these two are major thing that is called as configuration variable in a neural network. The number of neuron, now a number of layers, number of hidden layer, and size of layer. That means number of nodes or perceptron in a layer, size of layer. These two are very important. So here, what is single layer perceptron? Single layer perceptron do not incorporate any hidden layer in it. That means you are having some input values which are placed in this input node, and you are having some output layer or output node where it just gives you that. So it is nothing but more or less you can relate this as a kind of a regression problem, or where the variable or values are linearly separable. That is called single layer perceptron. The characteristics of a single layer perceptron is that the input values and output values are more or less linearly separable. Linearly separable means you can just if you run even if you run a linear regression, or it's basically a single layer numerical neural network modeling, it's just that you do not need that much abstraction, you do not need that much non-linearity in order to make a connection between input and output. So single layer perceptron is just the primitive one, it's a very basic one, but it incorporates the similar task. For example, the information will be carried of the input with respect to the weight. It can also take some bias, and it's just the linear and non-linear operator will be happening in the output node itself, and that values that will be coming from the output node is your expected variable, or the predicted one. Okay, so there is no hidden layer. That is the concept of single layer perceptron, that it is just working between the input layer nodes and output layer nodes. There is no hidden layer involved in a single layer perceptron. So typically it is the thing that perceptron that consists of 4 parts. Okay, so basically input values or one input layer. So this is called the input values or input layer. We have this linear and non-linear operations. So this is the net sum and activation function, and this is the weight and bias. Okay, WI maybe. So this is the structure of a single layer perceptron. Okay, so it does not contain any hidden layer. Whereas multi-layer perceptron, you can see that in the multi-layer perceptron you can have one or more hidden layer. Okay, so it depends, and here comes the major question, rather always a kind of thoughts that one needs to have in this kind of technique, is that how to determine the optimal number of layers to be optimum, and number of nodes in a particular layer. How do we decide? So these two are major you can call tuning parameter that we have to get. So there is no as such straightforward technique, or there is rather in terms of analytically way, if we say that there is no such analytical method exist that you will optimize some function, or you will calculate somewhere that this is the number of layer we are getting, optimum number of layer, or this is the optimum number of node in a layer. So there is no such technique exist. Okay, so it is basically a kind of trial and error you can call, and it's a more or less it's a art. You will gradually, with the number of data or with the type of data, you will experience over the time that what will be the number of layers required and what will be the number of nodes in a particular layer it is required. So it is of course suggested, or it is to be started with some number of layer and some number of nodes. So in order to start with some number of layer and some number of nodes, generally the heuristics, or more or less the rule of thumb says that if the data are linearly separable, then you do not need any hidden layer. That means single layer perceptron is fine. Okay, but if the data is of let's say looks like more or less complex and having other features. Let's say one example YouTube link that I will be providing to you. It's basically the type of data like this. Okay, so there are three. Let me tell that example. So there is a it's called risk of fire. So it's a forest fire data. Risk of fire, that is the probability data. So that is your output feature or output value. Okay. And what causes that, or rather in the input side, what are the three different type of category of values? One is the temperature. Okay. One is the relative humidity data, and one is the wind speed. Okay. So typically this sort of data, if you find the nature of data, then this is looks like it is not linearly separable. Huh? So there may be some non-linearity involved, and we have to incorporate some hidden layer. So it is generally advisable that you start with a single hidden layer, and if that does not work, then you have to increase gradually. It is not that suddenly you jump from one hidden layer to 5 hidden layer. Remember, the more and more hidden layer will be involved, you are increasing the magnitude of complexity in the model. So that leads to something sometimes called overfitting. So when we say overfitting, that means the predicted values. So the predicted values will be fitted. For example, rather, if you just find out this sort of behavior, let's say this is your target, this is your the output data, which is the observed data. Okay, this is basically we have to fit. So in all in neural network technique, we are trying to get that function. We are trying to get that nonlinear function or the lines, a nonlinear function from the model. So our model that is developed from neural network technique is nothing but a function. It's a basically mathematical, complex mathematical function. So it may happen that in case of overfitting, your data fits, your function fits all the data. Okay, so it's something maybe polynomial or a very complex nature of function which will fit all the data. Okay, maybe looks like this, but in reality, if you let's say take some and this is with respect to the y observed, y predicted, with respect to, let's say, temperature as a input class or input feature, or moisture or wind speed. So given a temperature, you know that this is the risk of fire as a observed value, but when you plot or when you use that function values, so this is basically when we are testing the data. When we have trained our model, we have learned the model functions, training period is over, and the remaining 30% data we are taking for testing, that how good our model is, and there we come across this overfitting problem. So it might fit all the data, but based on the temperature, let's say this we are landing sorry we are landing up here where the true value is far away. Or maybe this data you are thinking, so it may land up here. So maybe my the drawing is not good, or the functions that is fitted is of just arbitrary in nature, but the link that I will be sending, it is clearly shown that the functions that is approximating this data, it's maybe passing through all the data, but when you are trying to predict, or when you are trying to predict based on some temperature as a testing data set, then you are far away from the true value or the observed value. So there again, that root mean square error or percentage absolute error, so those measures, the performance measures of a model, will be very, very poor. So then we call this kind of problem as overfitting. So it might happen that by choosing a very large number of hidden layer, and accordingly, when you add one and more layer, it is almost like you are adding many number of nodes or perceptron in the layer or in the model. So they will create an overfitting problem. So sometimes that we have to keep in mind. So we have to add our layers very gradually. Some more or less 1 or 2 hidden layer is good enough, at least for most of the problem, or sometimes you might require 3 to 5. But this is something one has to do it on the trial and error basis, and there is no as such analytical technique that exists from where you will directly calculate the number of hidden layer. Similarly, how to choose the nodes or neurons or perceptron in a hidden layer. So in a particular layer, how will you decide that what will be the number of nodes, right? So that is basically should be so these are all, kind of heuristics or rule of thumb, or based on the experience that people have found out over handling over large set of different class of data or different type of data. So one is basically the number of hidden neurons or number of hidden node that should be between the uh, size of the input layer and the output layer. Okay, so this is something very important. You have to incorporate this. You have to keep in mind that number of hidden layers should not be less or should not be more. Should not be more than hidden layer or should not be less than the input layer node, or should not be less than the input layer node and should not be more than the output layer node. So it is basically between. So if you have a 3 input layer nodes and you have only one output layer node, then more or less it is something like 2. The reasonably good choice is 2. You can have 3, but that you have to probably kind of optimize. So the examples that I will be showing, it has optimized the with respect to number of neuron, the Y predicted value. We will be showing that VLE problem. It's very interesting. So this is something, the most appropriate number. Again, this is comes from the heuristics experience, or not as a analytically there is a technique which says that it always should be square root, but it is a reasonably good choice. So square root of input layer node and output layer node. Okay. And also it suggests that if you have more than one hidden layer, the number of hidden neurons should keep on decreasing in subsequent layer to get more and more close to the pattern and feature extraction and ultimately the target class. So target class means your output. So let's say you have this, let's say 4 input layer node and 2 output layer node. Okay, so you might be thinking that I will be incorporating 2 hidden layer. So maybe in the first hidden layer you can keep 3, and in the second hidden layer you can keep 2. Like that. You may try first, or rather you should try first with a single hidden layer, and then you have to add one more hidden layer to add the number. So all it suggests that it should go on decreasing the number of hidden neuron in the subsequent layer. Okay, so but this all depends on the type of problem statement and the data set, the nature of data that we will be dealing with. Okay, so these are very important, the number of hidden layer and number of nodes in a hidden layer. Now in these connections, I would also like to add one thing, that is as in starting I was calling as parameter and hyperparameter. So in this neural network modeling technique, we have learned a word called hyperparameter. So what are the parameters, or in general, what is a definition of a parameter in case of modeling task? How do you what is the definition of a parameter? Can anyone comment on this? Let me see if you have understood or how far you have understood. What is parameter? Yes, anyone? Gaurav Jha? Anik Mandal? Nidhi Raj?
Yes, sir.
So what is called parameter? Come on, parameter you must be able to explain, right?
So parameter is something which helps in defining a particular system.
Very good. How do you determine that?
So by analyzing the system, we can it may be its characteristic or something like that. It's maybe the characteristic of that system.
Very good, very good. Qualitatively, perfectly said, qualitative terms. But the way to determine is something like this. For example, let's say y equal to mx plus c. What are the parameters? Or which are the parameters? Which are the parameters in here? Y equal to mx plus c. अरे बोलो जल्दी.
So M and C.
Very good. So M and C. So how do you determine that? Basically linear regressions, fitting of the data. So if you have Y and X available with you, you can easily get the M and C. Now just take a resemblance from here to the neural network technique what we were doing. We discussed about back propagation. We have seen the output input values and output values. We used a gradient descent algorithm. We updated the weights, and after one complete training dataset utilizations, we said that we have completed our one epoch. So after one epoch, we got the weight and bias values. So sorry, this is B. So weight and bias values. So this weight and bias is nothing but our parameter. They are getting determined from the model, and using that values, we are trying to test our model by feeding the input testing dataset. So here also, let's say when we are given a task that we have to determine the rate constant. So rate constant, sometimes what we do, we take reaction rate data over different space time, tau, and concentration data. We feed them and we calculate the rate constant. Again, we vary the temperature, we collect the rate, we calculate the activation barrier, activation energy. So these are called parameters, right? So moment you have decided some parameter, or if it is given already determined by someone else or previously, then you can basically calculate what will be the y given a value of x. So similarly, in the training period or training algorithm or training phase of the data, we are updating and we are rather determining the weight and bias. So these are our parameter, and when the training is over, we are doing the testing. We are using a different new set of input which data set was not used for training. So we want to see how good the model is performing with respect to some unknown data set. So that example, so that X is used over that already determined W and B over the training phase, and then we are predicting that Y, and then we are comparing the Y observed and Y predicted versus Y observed, or sometimes called Y true. Sometimes it is written YT or YO. So this is called parameter, which is it is determined during the model. During the modeling task, it is invariably used. Either one has to determine it, or one has to use these values to calculate the Y. Whereas hyperparameter, as its name, there is something hyper is also added. So it is something like you are unable to determine this. Okay. But it is essential. It is essential. It is essential because during the modeling, it actually governs the whole architecture of the model. For example, we have never encountered such a hyperparameter in case of this data fitting by in the form of linear regression or nonlinear regression. But here you see that hyperparameter in the neural network task, and something that is new we are defining and we are experiencing in this task is something called the number of layer and size of layer. Okay, so if something that is not determined during the model, it is not coming out after fitting the data from the model, then it is not a parameter, but it is something called a hyperparameter. But again, since it is used in the model, for example, without the number of layer or without the number of size of the layer, if you do not decide it or if you do not give it correctly, your model performance, that means the Y predicted or Y predicted, will be far away from the Y true or Y observed. So it is invariably that you have to tune the number of layer, you have to tune the size of the layer. So how many neurons in a particular layer, or what is the total number of layer you will be using, that you have to invariably tune during the modeling, during the training period. So it is required for the overall model performance. It is required for overall model development. For example, all we more or less are used to with this term called we have to train our data. That means it is nothing but we have to get that functions, get that neural network based developed functions. In a way, we have to get our correct W, correct B. These are determined. But in order to help them getting the correct value, there is someone who is controlling or who is governing. That is the number of layer and size of layer. Number of layer and size of layer. I write it as number of node. Right. Without this thing, we will be not without tuning them, without varying them, we will not be able to correctly obtain our functions. That means training algorithm based on the training data, training of the data, we will be not able to get the correct W, correct B. So something that helps to determine the parameter is called a hyperparameter. Something that is not determined, something that is configuration variable, which are not determined directly, but it is used in the process is such that it is helping to decide the correct parameter values. So they are called hyperparameter. So more or less in this particular neural network technique based analysis, we have encountered these two terms, parameter and hyperparameter. And this one of the way basically sometimes you'll also find that there is something called validation phase. So if the whole data set is divided like this, then this is required for training. This is something called validation, something called testing. Now let me give you a very interesting examples. Let's say in a class, when we teach a particular subject, we give we conduct regular classes. We interact with the students. We ask questions. It is basically concepts are discussed. Several concepts also get discussed and determined in the class. We come across and we revise the concept again and again. So we basically prepare overall both the teacher and students. They are basically improved. They are improved or they are developed over the discussion phase. Okay, so that subject content is more or less the way we conduct regular classes and interact with the students is something called training. We are improving our concept. We are improving our performance. Now what happens in the validation phase, it is something called you can compare it as an assignment problem or as a class problem. Okay, so in the validation phase of the neural network based modeling, what we found that we have a chance to improve our functions. That means we have a chance to improve our parameter and hyperparameter. So sometimes in neural network modeling, especially AI based and this feed forward neural network, you will sometimes find that the whole data set has been divided into 60 20 20 or 50 25 25 or 70 15 15 or sometimes 70 20 10. So that third or second one is basically validation. So a small data set we use to further tune our model architecture, model topology. That means the functions, the number of layers, number of nodes in a layer, and in a way we also change the or update the value of W and P. Right. So in the validation phase, we have a chance to further improve. That means it gives us a checking. It gives us a kind of precautionary task, precautionary check. That is similar to your assignment and class test kind of thing. You get a chance to improve further if that is not cleared. And the testing is something like in the final exam. So that is in neural network based modeling technique, we use the fully trained model and which has been improved over the validation phase, and then we use that model to predict some unknown data which has not been used in the training as well as validation phase. So how good the model is performing. So we again go for the testing phase. So this sometimes we use validation class or validation data set, or sometimes we just use training and testing. But it is often advisable that we keep some chunk of data to allow for it to get it correct, to get the exact number of layer or nodes. So in all the cases, we basically measures this RMS mean square error. So basically, there are various statistical measures we call absolute what is called percentage error. Just average absolute error and percentage absolute error. So these two are your statistical measures that we use for our, and also regression R values. So regression R values will come from this by plotting the true value and predicted value. So if you plot the true value and if you plot the predicted value, then you will see how linearly fitted or how parity is there. So all we are trying to see that it should match the predicted value. Okay, so over the whole, so that is the essence of this thing, that we have to calculate this thing to understand how good the model is or how good it is performing. So what is average absolute error? Average absolute error is basically the absolute value of the difference between the true and predicted, and over the all data, if we sum them and divide by the total number. So it's one way of measurement. Similarly, we can also measure the percentage absolute error, where we divide with respect to the target value, that means the true value or observed value. With respect to this, we take the ratio and make a percentage. So this is another way of measuring, and R square is nothing but the regression correlation coefficient that we are aware of. So these three are a way of measurement and of the modeling task, and this is how we generally understand, and this is the way of doing this. So till now we have at least seen the concepts of single layer and multi-layer, parameter, hyperparameter, and training, validation, and testing. Now let me use the remaining time to show you the examples that is used for what is called this neural network model. So there are many examples and different chemical engineering problem that is used under this neural network multi-layer perceptron. So though it will be given to you, but it's a long PDF which may not be required for you to read everything, but at least for this particular thing we will focus. Okay, so this is one example. There are many other examples, but this example will be more or less discussed or in the part of this syllabus. Okay, so VLE data prediction model for binary mixture. Okay, now let me ask you that how do you obtain VLE data? Do you have idea? Can anyone summarize how do you get VLE data?
Sir, from the equilibrium curve.
Okay, and how do you get that equilibrium curve? Yeah, you are correct. So
Constants.
bolo bolo. From which constant? Antoine constant. Can you tell again? What did you say? How do you get that equilibrium curve? Can anyone suggest how do you get equilibrium curve? What happened? Anyone? How do you get equilibrium curve? Hmm? You have done na thermodynamics course or mass transfer? Shanmugh or Subhajit? Yes.
Sir, we obtain it from the phase diagram, I think.
Diagram. Okay, I'm not fully convinced. Anyways, have you heard these equations? Vandler equations, Margulies equations? Basically, this equilibrium data are nothing but XY data. Okay, so basically one has to perform experiments. So experimental data that is used in preparing the curve is not straightforward. For example, you get the experimental data, that means you collect temperature X and Y. Okay, then you have to fit them in this different equation of state. Okay, Van Laer equations, you must have heard it. So there we actually determine the constant and interaction term. So algebraic equations are there which are nonlinear. We have the data set, we have the data points of X, Y, temperature. We determine the constant and interaction term, and then we get the fully equation available with us. And depending on any other temperature, we can prepare the XY curve and we get the equilibrium data. Okay, so that is the conventional way of doing preparing the VLE curve. So first we run the experiment, we then calculate the constant and interaction parameter based on the chosen equation of state. You must have heard Redlich-Clister or Van Laer equations. So from these equations, the constant and interaction term are best fit lines we generally find out, and then the VLE data are calculated with the appropriate constant and interaction term that we have determined in the previous equations or in the process, and then we over any other range of temperature. So basically, once the unknowns are found out, so y equals to mx plus c based on the data, we have calculated the m and c, and then we can generalize it and we can use for any x to calculate y. So similarly, this VLE curve are determined in this way, and VLE equilibrium data are prepared. So equations are obtained by calculating the constants. Then we can use them for design calculations, which you are currently doing for distillation column. Okay, and in also in case of flash drum, there also it is used. So this is the conventional way of preparing. But what happens that sometimes for the prediction, or rather the bubble compositions or the dew compositions, that means X and Y over the range, is sometimes it is not the close one, or rather it is not the best one. Okay, so one way of people have tried to just match or just do the same task by without using any equation of state or without using this conventional process. They have tried to use the existing data from different sources. For example, we want to prepare a VLE data at high pressure for ethanol and benzene system. I think in this particular problem, they have taken the ethanol benzene. Yes, they have taken the ethanol benzene as a case study. So what they have done, they have collected over a different temperature and this pressure range and temperature range. So it's a wide range of pressure and temperature and X and Y data are already collected. Now what they have done, they have categorized that problem into these two parts. Okay, so the first part says that we have to develop a neural network based VLE prediction model for a given binary mixture using the collected VLE data at different equilibrium conditions. So someone has used some one temperature and pressure. So based on that, you have got some XY data. In this way, you have several temperature, pressure and equilibrium conditions. You have collected several of the data. So we have categorized them into this four problem that. So what is available with us? We have all the pressure, temperature, X and Y available. But what we have to find out, that particular predictive model or that particular VLE model. That means that particular VLE equations, which earlier we were obtaining from the fitting the data and calculating the constant, and using that constant we were we were obtaining the particular line or equations of VLE. But here we will be not using any of the conventional approach. Rather, we just use that four type of data, and depending on our problem, we have categorize them into four particular tasks. So given temperature, so we can permutation, we can make four combinations available here. So given temperature and X as our input value, we can calculate P and Y. Similarly, we given a class of given a input set of T and Y. So we can prepare this data set into input and output category. So this this figure will be more or less meaningful to you. So suppose this is our input layer or input very values, and this is our output values. Similarly, we have just changed the temperature by pressure here and just swap this. Okay, so we have, so this we are calling as bubble pressure calculator problem. This is we are calling at bubble temperature calculations, and here we are calling it is as dew pressure and dew point, dew temperature. So so y and x, it is just they are determining the which phase it is. Okay, so x is basically your when it is combining with p and t, we are calling it as dew temperature, dew pressure calculator, and y corresponding to p and t, bubble pressure and bubble temperature calculator. So this fourth category of problem we can fix it, and we have a wide range of data set over this temperature and pressure that we have shown here. That this is the temperature range, I think. Temperature range. Yes, this is the temperature range. So what will be doing, we will be preparing a VLE model for ethanol benzene system as an example. So all in all, we have done, there is something that the data are already given, and we have basically, this is a way of writing 2M2 topology, or it is the terminology is in this particular neural network process is called topology, 2M topology. So M is the number of neuron in that single hidden layer. So they have also used a single hidden layer here. And as you can understand, this VLE data are not linearly separable, so we have to use multi-layer perceptron technique. That means we have to use at least one hidden layer in the process. And the question is how many number of nodes in this particular hidden layer. So that we have optimized here based on the number of neurons. So M is the number of neuron in the hidden layer. It is written in this bold form. So number of neuron was varied and the performance of the topology was measured. That means performance of this neural network model was measured by this average absolute error and regression R values. So what we can predict or what we can understand, that given a class of given a set of input variables of temperature and bubble compositions, dew compositions, we are trying to predict the bubble composition and bubble pressure. Now this predicted value will be compared with the actual value, because we all have the complete data set, temperature, pressure, X and Y, and there we have divided some data set into training and some to be testing. So now once the model is developed, then we are feeding some temperature and X from this testing data set and calculating the P and Y. P and Y. So let us go to the performance and see what they have done. Okay, so what they have done here, that based on the number of neuron in the hidden layer, that is one hyperparameter, number of neuron, and this is something we have to optimize. So for this particular problem, they have done it. Depending on the complexity, we have to deal accordingly. So at least for this example, let us see what they have done. So they have plotted the average absolute error between the predicted and what is called true P or bubble pressure. So since we are determining the bubble pressure in the first category of problem, we are determining the bubble pressure. So we have compared that with the predicted and true, and then based on the number of neuron, we have found that average absolute error goes on decreasing. So at least it is not very smooth. At least we cannot confirm, we cannot convincingly say that it is more or less constant. Let's say, can we say that after 8 number of neuron, the line is flat? We cannot say that. That means it is still having some oscillation in the data. It is still having not been able to fully incorporate the number of optimum layer. So performance is not very good in this case. Okay, similarly, based on we also have you can call as regression R values. So based on the number of neuron as a hyperparameter which we have varied, and we have seen that depending on the number of neuron variation, we also see a similar trend. that regression values is almost varying with number of almost like after 20 neuron it is constant, but although we have not increased the number of neurons, so oscillation is still there, whether it is average absolute error or regression R values. It is just in matter of measurement parameter index. So the trend is captured, the nature is evident, that it is not falling in line or falling in flat, so performance is not that good. Okay, so next we go to what is called bubble composition, that means Y. Okay, so based on P we have seen average absolute error and regression R value. Similarly, based on Y, that is our another output feature, we are also seeing, and we see the similar oscillation in the this process. Here also, here it is more or less predicted or coming as close, but at least overall performance wise, if we see, then bubble pressure and bubble composition are not very good. Okay, but if we go for the other category of problem, which is the second category, let's say dew pressure and dew temperature, or we will see some improvement. Let us see how it is shown here. So so this is bubble temperature. So bubble temperature also not behavior is good. Sometime you will find this. But if you go to dew temperature and dew pressure, so this is the third combination. Okay, no, I think I made a just give me a minute. Where was the, I think bubble temperature was good, not the bubble pressure. Maybe I'm getting it wrong, but dew pressure and dew temperature, that was also varying. It is more or less constant, but it is still some error is there. So I think we have to go to that particular table comparison. It will come to later. Okay, I think I have messed up here a little bit, but the point is that we once we predict them, predict the bubble pressure or bubble temperature or dew pressure or dew temperature, the idea is to plot the error percentage or measurement parameter index, average absolute error or root mean square error or percent absolute error with respect to the number of neuron. So this is the one way to optimize the number of neuron. Okay, but if the data set is very large and if your features are more, then this process will be very hectic. It will not be very smooth. And ultimately what we use with this set of model, we predict the temperature given the x and y. So we prepare our txy diagram, and then we see that how good is the fit with the experimental data. So one measurement that we have, or rather the when we vis-a-vis compare the numerical, the conventional way of calculations and the numerically and the neural network based technique. So this is something we get it from particular data comparison. So at particular temperature, we have performed the VLE experiments by varying the pressure. So this is the X and this is the Y. So this is the experimental values. Now we try to compare the experimental values with respect to our different approach. So Margules and Wandler, these are conventional thermodynamic model equation of state, and we calculate the y, basically bubble y. So bubble composition y is calculated based on the way that we do from the thermodynamic and combining numerical methods, because this bubble pressure and bubble composition, these calculations are not analytically straightforward. You have to take some guess value and calculate accordingly by doing the iterations. So if you see that bubble Y predicted from the thermodynamic models and neural network based model, and when we compare it with the experimental one, which one are the closest? So more or less, if you go through them, you will find that neural network based model values are performing well, at least for overall, if you see. So overall it is better, but one critical comment that one would like to make here is the range. So the range has to be particularly followed, or it has to be accurately determined. For example, if your testing data, if your testing data are not in the particular range that you want to prepare, then it may give you a very wrong predictions. So the temperature range and pressure range based on which you are preparing your data set has to be incorporating some or has to be chosen in such a way that your model developed from neural network technique is able to predict some unknown x or unknown input values, and giving the correct or output values, or predicted values which will be very close to the accurate one or exact one or true one. So one has to be very careful about choosing the temperature range and data preparations. Sometimes in the examples link that I will be sending, you will see that input data, type of data, they have further processed it to sometimes we in this terminology we call that we remove the noisy data. So when we say noisy data, that means we pre-process the data by changing them into logarithmic form, or we add some one more term. So basically we transform that input data type from one form to another in order to prepare a good predictions. So sometimes data pre-processing as well as choosing a particular range is very critical to the overall neural network based performance. But again, it is not the complete, or it is not the only one technique that is the best. There are many techniques that works with this, but artificial neural network based modeling is has been followed earlier, and nowadays nowadays due to the availability of very wide range of data, it is helping the neural network based model to again come into existence, because it can cover wide range, and if the number of data are large, covering the critical range that it should cover, then the performance or prediction is very good and almost like close to the real one or experimental one. So these examples I will be sharing and in the data in the file section notes, and you just go through them, and the link I will be posting by later today to see that example where risk of forest fire and temperature, humidity and wind speed has been chosen, and it shows step-by-step guidance how to use them in MATLAB modeling. Or in general also you will find in YouTube there are many techniques, or there are many links available where you will find the how to feed the data in MATLAB and do that training and testing task. Okay, so with this I conclude the today's class, and tomorrow we meet. Tomorrow mainly we'll take up any questions from all previous classes, and then we discuss about the term project topic. Is that fine with
Fine.
all of?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. Yes, Sanmukh, you were saying something.
Yes, sir. I was saying it is fine.
Ah, very good. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.